Welcome into a brand new Patriots Hub podcast. Alex, Barth, Matt Dolloff with you from 98.5 The Sports Hub and 98.5thesportshub.com. Week 4 preview, Patriots, Panthers, Dolph. We're already here, almost a month in. How about that?
I can't believe we're a quarter of the way in. September's flying by, Barth. It's going too fast.
It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. And quarter of the season in, there's still a lot to figure out, which is kind of what I want to use as the jumping off point for this game. We'll get into the actual matchup between the Patriots and Panthers, because obviously that matters, but I kind of feel like this game is a lot more about the Patriots. The more I look at the big questions I have going into this game, they don't relate so much to the matchup as what the Patriots are doing internally. I know the Panthers just beat the Falcons 30-0, but this is a team that doesn't have a ton of roster talent. It's a home game. Like, this is the kind of game that most teams should win. You should not feel uncomfortable about. It's a bad team coming into your building. You're coming off a tough loss. You're looking to get right. This is the kind of team that a game that a team heading in the right direction wins, simply put. It's just, can the Patriots get out of their own way and do that? And that's where the questions come in. So that's where I'm at, big picture with this game. And we can get into some of the individual changes they may need to make to do that. But just personally, like, I feel this game, I don't want to say it feels like a preseason game. I think that's underselling it. But, like, I have a lot more questions about what the Patriots are going to do regardless of what's happening on the other side than I do maybe matchup type questions for this one.
Look, it's natural to have a little bit of unease right now, right? Because they're 1-2. They've lost for some of the same reasons that they've lost the previous 2 years when they were 4-13. And so we're sitting here wondering, like, what direction is this season going to go? Are they going to, is this another 4 or 5 win season, or are they going to get back to, at least mediocrity, respectability, competence at the NFL level? And, like, we're still sitting here wondering, for reasons we weren't expecting. The coaching and preparation and game plans haven't been quite as crisp as we thought they were going to be with bringing in Mike Vrabel and an experienced coaching staff. And so that's been a disappointment. And so it's understandable to be uneasy, Barth, but you just laid it out. Like, the Panthers are coming into Gillette Stadium. Don't tell me that Bryce Young and Dave Canales are going to come into Foxborough and beat the Patriots. I don't care that the Patriots don't have a great roster. They're not the same team that they were in the glory days roster-wise, certainly offensively, but just don't tell me that that's going to happen. And you mentioned the fact that it feels like a preseason game or whatever. Look, September is sort of an extension of the preseason in the NFL, right? It almost feels like every year, no matter what the team, no matter what the year, the real season begins week 5, right? Like, September is almost sort of an extension of what teams are working on in the preseason, especially with the way that teams have sort of tamped down training camp, and the preseason has been shortened, the actual preseason. So more than ever, September feels like an extension of the preseason. All the more reason for the Patriots to come out of this game with a win, no matter how they can get it, right? Come out of this game, get to 2-2, and we can nitpick the things that they've done well and the things that they haven't done well over the first 4 games. But if they come out of this September 2-2, you can feel okay about the team. And look, like, you don't want to look too far ahead. Week 5 at the Bills, that's probably a loss. And so they're probably going to be 2-3 through 5 games. But just don't tell me they're going to be 1-4, right? Don't tell me they're going to come out of this game with a loss. Like, at the end of the day, we can't have Bryce Young and Dave Canales coming in to Gillette Stadium and beating the Patriots. The Patriots have to come out of here with a win, no matter how they do it. And we can talk about how they play and how it looks and all that. And, maybe it doesn't look great. Maybe they have to grind out a win. Maybe it's harder than we want it to be. But at the end of the day, they come out of this at 2-2. I feel okay. And then let the real season begin, right?
And by the way, it wouldn't just be 1-4 if they lose to the Bills, or 1-3 if they lose this week. The number that would stand out to me, 0-3 at home against 3 teams that might not make the playoffs. Like, that would just be a brutal way to start the season. You mentioned Dave Canales. I don't know if you saw his comments this week when asked about facing the Patriots. Quote, "They don't do a lot. What they do very well." And he added, "It's just clean football." I would argue both of those things are incorrect. I think the Patriots are pretty multiple, but it 5 turnovers last week, a ton of penalties. Like, it's not clean football by any means so far. But I don't think that saying they don't do a lot, I don't think is true either. They've run a completely different offense from week 1 to week 3. So,
yeah, I think it's kind of football speak when guys talk like that. I know it doesn't read well when a guy's like, well, they just do what they do, or they don't do a lot, or it's not that complicated what they do. They're not necessarily saying it's bad. like a team could just do what it does or not do a lot, but they do those, specific things really well, which I guess is sort of what Dave Canales was saying. But it is a little curious because offensively, they kind of, Josh McDaniels anyway, wants to be kind of a chameleon, right? He wants to plan according to the opponent and not do the exact same thing every week. And so it's a little curious that he say, I wonder if it was sort of like a Jedi mind trick type of thing where Dave Canales, they're playing such clean football. They do all the little things so well. They never get penalized, Barth. They do such a good job holding on to the ball. Like I'm pouring over this week 3 film of the Patriots, and what stood out to me was the ball security and the discipline. Like, I guess maybe that's what he was sort of getting at. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm giving Dave Canales a little too much credit there. But it was a little bit of a curious comment. If you're a Patriots fan, you got to hope that he's just sort of out to lunch when it comes to getting ready for this team, and he's not actually watching the same team that we've been watching.
All right, let's look at what the Patriots are going to do on Sunday. And like I said off top, there's some lineup questions that I think are looming. Rhamondre Stevenson, first and foremost, 2 more fumbles last week. Now, Josh McDaniels said today, like, he's always been confident in him. What do? I don't know that you can outright bench him. First off, you can't have 2 running backs. Like, you need more than 2 running backs to play. So you can't make him inactive unless, I guess they could elevate Terrell Jennings from the practice squad, but even then, like, how much do you want to involve him? The other thing is, for as much as Stevenson's fumbled, he's also been one of their most explosive players. They have 7 plays of more than 20 yards this year. Stevenson has 3 of them. You saw it in the Miami game. You saw it at time in that Steelers game before the fumble. He's also far and away been their best pass blocking running back. So I wonder if that's what it is. I wonder if he dresses, and this is what they did last week after the second fumble, and people were kind of wondering, why is he still in the game? Why is he still out there? He was out there to pass block. And look, ball security should not come up, should not be an issue if a guy's just in there to block. We've never talked about offensive lineman ball security before or anything like that. So maybe that's the role for him, is he's just in on obvious passing situations, 3rd and long, and he's staying in to block when he's doing that. Beyond that, I don't know that you overload TreVeyon Henderson. I don't think that's the answer. I see people saying they want to see more of him. He had 14 touches last week. He led the team. For the season, he's second in touches with 30. Only Stevenson is more with 32. But he's averaging, last week he averaged just over 3 yards a touch. I believe he's just over 4 for the season right now. That's not high enough to justify a bigger role. I think I don't know if it's his vision or his patience, but he's just not. It all looks a little quick for him right now, which is not totally unheard of for a rookie. But when it's him or when it's Gibson, the offense is just a little more stagnant. And you don't want to be stagnant offensively. Yes, it's better than turning the ball over, but if it just means you're punting a ton, you're just giving the defense longer fields to work with. That's it. You're not advancing towards putting more points on the board. So I still think we see all 3. I think it's a healthy split of Gibson and Henderson, and then Stevenson in obvious passing situations where they can use him as a blocker. And, maybe he gets 2 or 3 touches over the course of the game just to keep the defense honest.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like Henderson's ready for what they want to do, like in any situation. Like, if you go back to last week and the chart came out from Next Gen Stats about, like, every time Henderson touched the ball, it's pretty much all runs to the left end. Like, they're not doing anything. They're not doing anything crazy with him in terms of the scheme. And we've seen enough of him in limited snaps as a pass blocker that he's not quite ready for that level of speed and power of what he has to block at this level. So, like, there's a learning curve for him there. And I wonder if that's sort of complicated things. Like, I wonder if he's just not ready in general, whether it's running or passing. And so they kind of have to lean on Rhamondre Stevenson more than maybe they were hoping to do. And so, like, look, Henderson's going to get out there eventually. They're going to use him more than they have. He's not going to get, like, well, I know you said about leading them in touches. It's just that it hasn't felt that way because of, like, the simplified way they've been using him. They haven't been creative with him at all. And I just feel like they're looking at it and says they're not really at that point where they can use him in more creative ways. I think they're just sort of giving him touches to almost reduce the workload of the other backs. That's what it feels like. And so I see your point as far as using Stevenson, in obvious passing down situations because he's most ready to pass block. But look, I'd be okay benching him. For a week, send a message. And I know that you're saying Terrell Jennings isn't necessarily going to play that much if they bring him up. But Give him a few snaps. Just give Gibson more snaps. And I know, like, if Henderson's not ready, he's not ready. I get it. But to your point, like, I guess the compromise there would be make Stevenson active, dress him, but he's basically your emergency back. Like, don't put him out. Like, he's gotten the vote of confidence from Josh McDaniels, and Mike Vrabel's talking about how we need him, and we're just going to practice the hell out of it when it comes to fumbling. But the fumbling has obviously crept back in. It's bled over from last season to this season. And, like, the only way to send a message, I think, is to not play him. And if that means you got to make him active but not actually use him and just use him in an emergency situation, that's fine. If it means you got to make him inactive for a week, you can send the message that way. Don't even dress him. I would be fine with that. I think you got to send the message to Rhamondre Stevenson. You got to hold on to the ball. That's your job as a running back, is to carry the football. Like, more, obviously the quarterback, but more than anybody,
right,
that's the guy. You touch the ball, you're expected to just gain yards and go down, or gain yards into the end zone. Those are literally the two things you're supposed to do as a running back. And Rhamondre Stevenson came as close as you could to accomplishing that without doing it, because he fumbled at the goal line. And so you got to send a message. And so, look, compromise, make him active, only use him in sparingly. And so I guess maybe that's what you got to do. But you got to be able to send a message to Rhamondre Stevenson one way or the other, that, like, you're not going to keep getting all the touches if you put the ball on the ground. You can't have it.
No, he needs to have a significantly lesser role. I agree with that. I just don't think I don't think that they have the luxury of being able to bench him entirely because of the rest of the roster. And I also think, like, look, and we talked about this a little bit on Monday. When Mike Vrabel says after the game, we're going to need him, I don't think he's wrong. Like, they still need him at his best for the offense to be at its best. How do you square that with the fumble issues? I mean, you don't want to remove him entirely, where now it really gets to him mentally and there's no coming back from it. But I mean, that being said, you can't play the guy that's going to put the ball on the ground. So I think keeping him involved just as a blocker and then going from there, 10 to 15 snaps is probably the best way to go about it. I think that's balancing the short term and the long term.
And maybe if you give him the ball quickly, maybe if you give him the ball, maybe give him the ball in situations where it's obvious, just hug the ball and go down. You know what I mean? Nothing crazy. Don't try to make guys miss. Hug the ball with two hands as hard as you can. Just power through down the middle and just get a few reps where you're holding onto the ball. Like, maybe that's what you need to do. Like, maybe it's sort of the same thing as giving Drake May a simple pass play to get him going. Like, maybe you just give Stevenson a few runs up the middle where it's just hug the ball with both hands as tight as you can, like it's your baby, and, go down after 3-4 yards. Maybe that's what that they need to get him going and get him in the right mindset of holding onto the ball. Like, I'd be okay with that, but, like, you got to get him in the mindset of holding onto the ball. Like, it's plain and simple.
The other spot where there's been questions about personnel is at wide receiver. Pop Douglas had another rough game last week. That position as a whole is struggling to produce. And this is a Panthers team that has allowed the fewest yards and the second fewest catches to opposing wide receivers in the NFL this year. It's not to say they have a great secondary. Some of it is they're getting shredded by linebackers and running backs. In the passing game, those two positions, the Panthers are allowing as much production as almost anybody in the league. I think it's a little more at tight end. I believe that they're allowing the most tight ends and running back are somewhere in that top 10. But they've allowed the least production to opposing wide receivers. So something to keep in mind, that it is going to be a tough challenge. But, with Pop Douglas continuing to struggle and him and Drake May not looking to be on the same page, do they shake things up? And to me, shaking things up means going to one of the rookies. Now, I've gotten a ton of questions this week about Efton Chism. And I think Efton Chism should and probably eventually will have a role in this offense. I don't think this is his time yet. I think you got to go to Kyle Williams first for a couple of reasons. One, you're going to bump Stephon Diggs into the slot, play Kyle Williams at the Z. I think Diggs is going to be more comfortable in the slot. It's going to get him more involved, and Kyle Williams still gets to get on the field. And two, and I've talked about this a lot, really going back to the summer, you need that straight line speed element. You need a guy that is a threat to go vertically. And I think part of the problem with Pop is they're not using him vertically enough. And maybe they don't trust him in that role. Kyle Williams is a much more vertical receiver, so they can trust him to do some more of that. If you don't have that speed element on the field, you're just asking teams to play bigger defensive sets and bring those safeties up close to the line of scrimmage and pack the box. And now it's going to make it that much tougher to run the ball. And you need somebody who will keep defenses honest over the top. And I believe Kyle Williams can do that. He also projects to be a very good yards after the catch player. He was number 2 in the entire nation in yards after the catch per catch last year, is just over 8 yards per catch he had for Washington State. So I wouldn't bench pop entirely. I think you still put him out there on occasion, maybe some more gadget type plays. But when you go into that passing 11, when they're in 11 to run the ball, and they've mostly been in 12 to do this, so this situation doesn't come up that much. But when they're in 11 to run the ball, Booty, Mac Hollins, Diggs. Booty and Mac Hollins are really your plus blocking wide receivers. And then when you're going to pass, you move, Diggs has been at the Z, you move him inside to the true slot. Kyle Williams goes to that Z role where he can be a threat in a number of different ways. Or you could honestly move Booty to the Z and put Kyle Williams at the X. It's probably a little more complicated than it needs to be, but that would be an option as well. I think Efton Chism is just in the slot. So there's less, you're moving less guys, but there's less flexibility there. And again, you lose that speed element. Also, I know the best player needs to play and all that. I get that. There is an element of it to me too, of you took this guy in the 3rd round. You can't pass him over for the UDFA. They've got to start developing their draft picks at wide receiver. It has to happen. We can't get to week 8 and Kyle Williams still isn't playing. If Kyle Williams isn't the answer, I promise you, Efton Chism's not going anywhere. So I think it's time to start seeing a little more Kyle Williams and see what he can do. Whether that's this week, whether that's next week, we'll see. Vrabel kind of made it sound like maybe, and for what's worth, Vrabel did sound optimistic. I guess not optimistic because he knows, but Vrabel did, his answer kind of made it seem when he was asked this week, like Kyle Williams may play a little bit more this week. He was a little less immediate when talking about Efton Chism. So I get that's a bunch of different takes, Dolloff. I have a whole column up on it on 985thesportshub.com. Just like, are you rolling with the status quo wide receiver? Do you want to see more of Kyle Williams? Do you want to see more of Efton Chism? Should they just live in 12 and go more with the tight ends? Like, what are you looking to see them do to get this passing game really going?
No, it's one of my favorite things to do, Barth, is to let you go for as long as you want and then try to remember everything and then try to go back one by one through all the details the best I can. So I'm going to do the best I can, Barth. So let's rewind all the way to Efton Chism. My thing with Efton Chism was really just that one play last week, that 4th and 1 play. I just think Efton Chism would have gotten the yard there. I think fighting for extra yardage has been a strength of his. But really, like that game, like they didn't have Chism. That should have been Steph Diggs getting the ball there. I think, look, it's Steph Diggs. You paid him $23 million guaranteed or whatever it is, $23 million this year. Like, you go to him in the gotta-have-it situations. Like, he should be the guy getting the ball on 4th down, especially 4th and 1, and it's like he's catching a short pass and he's got to fight for the extra yard. Like, that should be Steph Diggs in those situations. So, I'm fine with that. I'd be okay with giving Chism a shot over Demario Douglas. I don't think Chism deserves a shot over Kyle Williams. Like, I agree with you completely on Kyle Williams. I think he's a guy, like, you got to start getting him involved at some point. Like, and maybe this is part of the extension of the preseason thing. Like, they're really going to start letting him loose more after this week. But I get what you mean about stretching the field and keeping them honest. Where I would love to see Kyle Williams maybe make a play is in the shorter passing game and try to get yards after the catch, which I know you mentioned as well. Like, he's a guy that can beat you off the line of scrimmage, and he's a guy that can beat you maybe at the top of the route with his footwork. Like, see if he can give him a slant and a hitch and things like, maybe he can turn it like a slant into a big play. Like, that's something that I would love to see from Kyle Williams. And like, I would love to see him on the field more, period. And I would love to see him getting the ball more. And like, he's a guy that you got to be able to make explosive plays at some point, and they're just not getting enough of that out of their wide receivers. And I know Kayshon Boutte's made some big plays, but he hasn't been a consistent big play guy. Like, he's not a guy that's necessarily going to beat you with separation down the field. He's made great, concentration catches down the field, but he's been relatively well covered. Like that touchdown in Miami is an example of that. Yeah. Kyle Williams is a guy that can separate, and he's a guy that could beat a cornerback one-on-one with his route running and his separation ability. And so that's a guy that I would love to see get the ball more and just period and see what he could do with the ball in his hands. And I know it's a question of catching the ball for him. So, once he has the ball, let's see what he can do. But he's got to get the ball in the first place. I don't know if that's been an issue behind the scenes.
Sorry to cut into something. I believe it or not, I forgot something in that whole rant. Kyle Williams didn't work a ton with the ones in the summer, but he did. I think Efton Chism caught one, maybe two passes, if that, in team drills from Drake May over the summer. Like, they have not worked together. So in terms of actually getting the ball in his hands, I think with either one, there's going to be some development in terms of the chemistry with the quarterback, but I would think Kyle Williams is a step or two ahead of where Efton Chism is at in terms of chemistry with Drake May.
Yeah, no, I can see that totally. Yeah, but look, Kyle Williams has been active. And so, like, the question, like, can he get more snaps? Can you increase the workload there? Like, I just think they got to mix it up and try something different because they're not getting enough overall out of that position. I just don't know that this is the week to do it. Like you touched on it, J.C. Horn is one of the best young cornerbacks in the league. Who's playing well for them is Mike Jackson. He was known as Michael
Patriots
Jackson.
legend.
When he was here, he was known as Michael Jackson. He's probably sick of the references to the pop singer, so now he goes by Mike Jackson. But he's actually developed into a pretty solid corner with the Panthers. And so I wonder if he's going to make a difference for them in terms of their secondary. It seems like he has so far this year. But yeah, like this doesn't feel like the week that the wide receivers really get going. I want to see them try different things, but I just don't see that this is the week that they really explode or they really have a breakout week. I think this is going to be another tight end week. I expect Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper to get the ball a lot. I think they're going to have another productive game overall as a tandem. The backs too, like their linebackers and safeties haven't covered nearly as well as the cornerbacks, and so knowing Josh McDaniels, I think he's going to look at them and say, these are the guys we need to target. And so I expect this to be another tight end game. And I wouldn't be shocked if Rhamondre Stevenson continues to get the touches that people are hoping he doesn't get. He hasn't had a chance to catch the ball and then fumble. Like maybe Stevenson gets a chance to do that, so I expect it to be another backs and tight ends day, but your point stands on the wide receivers. They got to start trying different things, and hopefully they get Kyle Williams going because this is a guy you presumably drafted to make explosive plays down the field, and he seems like a compliment for Drake May, who hasn't thrown the ball deep down the field that much this year, and so maybe they can get that going this week.
One more personnel note on offense. We're recording this Thursday evening. Jared Wilson has missed the first 2 days of practice, so we don't know Friday yet, but usually when you don't practice Wednesday and Thursday, you don't play. I would imagine Ben Brown is the next man up at left guard, considering he was battling for that job in camp. The Panthers' best player, I don't know, Dolph, you tell me if you disagree. The Panthers' best player is probably defensive tackle Derek Brown, who's been a really good player in this league for a few years now. Dominant 3 down. Like, doesn't play quite the same as Christian Barmore, but you can think like similar impact. Big, powerful, can play the run, can play the pass, all of that. So he's going to be lined up, against Ben Brown, against Garrett Bradbury, against Mike Onwenu there on the inside. I actually talked to Onwenu and Ben Brown about him this week, and they were very complimentary. Brown actually faced him a couple times in college, Auburn and Ole Miss back in the day. So he said he's familiar with some of those matchups going way back, but he feels like he's a different player now. Brown's a different player now, a few years in the league, but it's something to watch. You're going to have, and I think Ben Brown's a solid player, but where's the chemistry at with him, with the rest of the line? It's been the same group for 3 weeks. Now they're going to make a change. And, if I'm the Panthers, I'm probably hunting that. I'm probably hunting that spot with Derek Brown.
Yeah, no, look, Derek Brown, probably one of the 2 or 3 best players on the Panthers, if not the best. He's been a premier defensive tackle pretty much since he came into the league a few years ago. And so Josh McDaniels, I believe, gave him a specific shout out earlier today, right? So
I think Vrabel did too. Yeah.
Was it one or both of them? So like they know, like Josh McDaniels has to know this is a guy that we need to A, block it up, and B, don't put the ball anywhere near this guy. Let's not run the ball straight into Derek Brown, and let's get rid of the ball. And look, I've always said it. I've always said there's few things more valuable on a defense than a guy that can just blow things up right there down the middle. And so if you get pressure up the middle, you're going to have problems. You're probably going to have Drake May escaping the pocket a lot. Maybe try some of that West Coast rollout type of stuff to sort of combat it. But I expect them to, try to play keep away with the ball and Derek Brown as much as they can. So that is what I'm expecting. I know it might be tough going from Jared Wilson to Ben Brown, but yeah, like I think Ben Brown's been a solid guy, mainly at center though, not necessarily at left guard. I'm not sure how big of a drop off there is from Jared Wilson, who looks like he's going to be a good player for them long term. But going from a rookie in his 4th game to a solid veteran, like I'm not sure there's a huge drop off there. I think just at the end of the day, take care of Derek Brown the best as you can, and don't put the ball anywhere near him, if you can help it. My thought is more on Will Campbell. Like, I feel like this is a good bounce back opportunity for him. He's going to get, sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. DJ Wanham, kind of an undersized 5-tech, doesn't have a sack yet this year. So, like, he's not exactly an overwhelming matchup scenario for Will Campbell, I don't think. Like, I would expect Will Campbell to have kind of a bounce back. And so maybe they can do what I've been saying for a couple of weeks here, which is maybe utilize Will Campbell out to the edge, maybe run around Will Campbell, use him as a blocker upfield more. And so I'm expecting Will Campbell to have kind of a bounce back week, but it might be tough if he's next to Ben Brown, who he's not used to. And they got Derek Brown wreaking havoc over the middle. I think as long as they can sort of take care of Derek Brown, they don't scare me that much up front. It's funny. Will Campbell played more. He played against a couple of guys, a couple of rookies on the Panthers, Nick Scorton and Princely Umamielen. He played against them a lot in the SEC, but they've been mostly lining up against right tackles so far. And so I don't know if maybe they go back and look at the film and try something different. And they put those guys up against him, because Nick Scorton, I thought, going back and watching the LSU tape, he did give a pretty good challenge to Will Campbell.
He had one of the better games against Campbell. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I wonder if maybe they try something different there. But if it's DJ Wanham, who's mostly lined up on that side, I think Will Campbell has a good chance to have a bounce back week this week. And so as long as they take care of Derek Brown, the pass protection, I expect to overall have a bounce back. It's really just picking the right matchups in the coverage, I think, is going to be the key for the offense this week.
All right, let's move on to the defense. And Bryce Young coming in, really interesting player, a guy that struggled. I think it's fair to say he struggled significantly early on in his career. He was one of those rookies. It was him and Anthony Richardson within a few weeks of each other that got benched, and you really didn't see first-round picks benched as early as the two of them were. And obviously that went different ways. Anthony Richardson has since lost his job with the Colts. Daniel Jones playing well there now. Bryce Young, though, bounced back, had a really good second half of last season. The results to start this year have been mixed. Did not have a good start to the season, threw 2 picks against Jacksonville in week 1, but he's been better since. Kind of had a minimal impact last week, but they didn't really need him to do a ton. How do you feel about, we've seen in the past these mobile quarterbacks give the Patriots issues. Now it's a new defensive system. How do you feel about this matchup going in?
Yeah, Bryce Young's an interesting one, right? Because last year he gets benched in the middle of his second year amid these mighty struggles. And what do we always say? You kill the guy's confidence. You take him out and you ruined him. That's it. He's done. He'll never be the same. They put him back in a few weeks later, and all of a sudden it looks like he turned a corner, right? And so it's like, oh, maybe
it worked. Like benching him worked.
Yeah, maybe it actually worked on this particular guy. Maybe that's not always a case of killing the guy's confidence. And so, yeah, mixed results so far this year. He's not throwing the ball deep. It's interestingly enough, Drake May is throwing the ball deep at a lower rate than Bryce Young. But Bryce Young, like, he's not a guy that you're worried about him, like, pushing the ball downfield, making big plays with his arm. And I know he's mobile and he can pick up a first down at the sticks with his legs. Like, I know that might be an issue. You hope that it's not vintage Cam Newton type of situation where they just can't tackle him. He gets into the open field. I know tackling has been sort of an issue. So you look at a guy like Robert Spillane, who I thought, had a huge bounce back last week with 15 tackles. Like, do you put him in like a spy kind of role? Like, is he a guy who's just always got his eyes on Bryce Young, and if Bryce Young's going to take off, then hopefully Spillane hits the right gap and he makes the tackle, and he's the one that sort of limits him there. So I really, again, this goes back to the first part of this podcast where don't tell me they're going to come in and win this game. Don't tell me Bryce Young is going to come in this game and come into Gillette Stadium and beat the Patriots with his legs. Like, don't tell me they're going to win the game that way. And so, yeah, I hope that they sort of have a guy that's constantly watching Bryce Young in terms of what he's going to do. Is he going to throw or is he going to run? And if he takes off, hopefully you have a guy sort of zeroing in on him. And so that's going to be an interesting conundrum for the Patriots defense, which I don't think the game plans have been totally sharp this year. And is Zach Core going to be calling the plays again this week, or is Terrell Williams back?
I don't know if they've announced it officially, but I think that's kind of what they've hinted at, if I remember correctly.
So look, Zach Core, like he's doing his best, but he's not experienced in the play calling, right? And so I hope that Mike Vrabel is looking at this defense and he's saying we're not prepared enough for these games. We're not coming up with good plans, and hopefully he's putting a little more focus into the defense this week than it seems like he has been, because I think they do have to start coming up with better plans. I think they do have to start calling better plays, and don't overthink it, right? Like just keep it simple. And like that, I think that's a good plan with a mobile quarterback, is to have someone spying him and cover tight man to man. And just, I know they haven't been great getting pressure with 4, but just try to get pressure with 4 and don't overdo it with the pressure, and just try to keep Bryce Young contained. I think if you can keep him contained, he's not going to march all the way down the field 10 plays without, an errant pass or being rushed into a bad decision. I think if you stay patient on defense, you can almost, force him to be patient going all the way down the field. And I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to do that consistently over the course of a 60-minute game. And so, yeah, just keep him contained and just keep it to the short plays and try to contain him as a runner. That's where I think Spillane is going to be key to that plan. And I think as long as they can, stick to that patience, they don't overthink it or get overly aggressive on defense, I think they'll be okay.
Well, you said the pressure, like, this is another guy that is going to get rid of the ball quickly. And yes, Tua obviously killed him with that. And so how much does blitzing really help you if the guys are going to get the ball out of his hands before you can get there? It's the pass rush has been better than their secondary. I don't think I'm breaking news to anybody with that. But this is another one of those games where I think the opponent's going to try to take the pass rush out by just getting the ball out quick, having some quick hitters. So that's where you get to the corners, and Christian Gonzalez potentially being back could be big. And you get into the element of Ted McMillan, where they're banged up at receiver. They're probably going to lean on him more than they have. He's been good. And you get this interesting little storyline. We did a little bit in week 1, but it was week 1 and there was so much going on. We maybe didn't talk about it as much as we could have, but this was one of the draft debates. Will Campbell, Ted McMillan, OT1, wide receiver 1. Where do you go? What helps your quarterback more? And they obviously went with the tackle. And I'd see rougher game last week. All things considered, I would say so far so good with that decision. No buyer's remorse for me. I don't think they should have any buyer's remorse, but you notice Ted McMillan come into Gillette and light it up, and suddenly there's a ton of second guessing coming from that. So Ted McMillan's a very, regardless of whether the Patriots had a chance to draft him or not, or were considered drafting him or not, Ted McMillan's a very key player in this game. And you're probably going to have your best player in Christian Gonzalez up against him. That is a very meaningful matchup in more ways than one.
Yeah, no, it's a great time to get Christian Gonzalez back, right? Against Ted McMillan, who looks like the real deal so far. Like, he's averaged, I think, 5 catches, 72 yards in 3 games, and that's not a very explosive quarterback or a particularly explosive offense. And so I think he's been pretty impressive. I'm glad you mentioned getting rid of the ball quickly, Barthy. That is actually the one thing that would concern me with Bryce Young, is that I don't know that he's going to be perfectly accurate going all the way down the field. But if he can get rid of the ball quickly and get the ball into the playmaker's hands, like, I think this is a good test for the defense. Is like,
can you dice you up?
Can you tackling, like, after the catch, like, can you start stacking weeks in terms of your tackling, which I thought was better last week. But if you get back to all of a sudden he's getting into the ball in the hands of a guy like Ted McMillan, or Chuba Hubbard is another one who might be tough to bring down in the open field. Like, is the tackling crisp? And so, like, if Bryce Young's getting rid of the ball quickly and he's on point with those catches, like, they're going to have to be on point with the tackling. And so, like, they're going to have to prove that that last week wasn't a fluke. It wasn't just, well, we really focused on the tackling last week, so that's why it was good. Like, no, that has to be sharp every week. And Bryce Young is a guy that, like, he plays a certain way that's sort of given the defense trouble this year. I don't have a high level of confidence in him to put it together for 60 minutes is sort of the point I was making. But his play style is a good test for this defense and how they've played so far and whether they can start stacking weeks together.
Yeah, I think those are that's all fair points. Like, if Bryce Young doesn't have to beat them with big plays. Where Bryce Young's going to beat them is just consistently taking a profit, making the smart play, getting the ball in and out of his hands. Like, that's how he beats you. Geno Smith beat them because he's throwing the ball down the field, right? Tua beat that. It's similar to what Tua did to them. Now, he doesn't have the talent around him that Tua does in Miami. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, but it's that, and that should help the Patriots. But it's that same concept of he's going to get the ball out before the rush can get there, and he's going to he does a good job in the short game of setting his receivers up to create after the catch and the ball placement and things like that. And if you're not careful, they can burn you from that. So that's the biggest thing that worries me with this Panthers offense as well, Dolph. It's well put by you. One special teams point here. The Panthers, so their offense and defense have been kind of mad this year. Their special teams has been excellent. And the big thing is on the kickoffs, they have the dirty kicks, which is you're kind of you're sending a knuckleball down there. They don't do it every time, but I think they do it more than just about any team. The Patriots have done this a few times, but the Panthers are really good at it. It's a tough ball to read off the foot. It's a tough ball to catch. It's kind of a knuckleball. So you're either letting it hit the ground first or you're misjudging it. It just gives the coverage team a little bit of an advantage. The Panthers have the lowest opposing starting field position on kickoffs of any team in the league. I don't have the number in front of me. They're one of like 3 teams under, like behind the 30-yard line. So you got to be on your P's and Q's on special teams. And they've been good in the other phases as well. Like you got to be good, your P's and Q's on special teams, because if it's going to be another close game, it's going to come down to the margins. The special teams margin, the Panthers are excellent.
Yeah, word of the week, Barth. Peter. Get the hell away from the ball.
Remember, you can't do that on kickoffs.
Oh, okay.
Or I guess you could, but if the ball bounces in play and then goes into the end zone for a touchback, you only get the ball at the 25. So you're sacrificing potentially significant yardage. And maybe that's the way you want to do it. But on kickoffs,
my concern, the reason I say it is that my concern is the ball bounces too close and it takes a funky bounce off the turf and it just touches the guy, and then all of a sudden it's a muffed kick. You know what I mean? That would be my concern. I guess maybe that doesn't apply on kickoffs as much as it used to.
No.
They don't do the same thing on punts. Like, is the punting more straightforward?
I mean, everybody's trying to hit a little bit of a knuckly punt, unless you're really just going for distance and trying to flip the field. But their punt coverage unit, like, it's all been good. They've been good in all the phases. I would say the dirty kick is the one thing that they do that's kind of like unique and new. Everything else is just like, it's just good high level special teams play.
So I wonder if they're gonna test TreVeyon Henderson in that department. If they're gonna kick in his direction,
that's an interesting point.
He's gonna have to catch that.
It feels like teams have kicked away from him, but do they try to see if the rookie can catch the weird kickoff? I think it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
I don't know if are they that sharp as a coaching staff? Like I don't know enough about a guy like Dave Canales and his coaching staff that they look at the film that deeply and say, we're going to test TreVeyon Henderson. If they do, I mean, could be trouble for the Patriots.
Yeah. But again, I'll just say it feels like their special teams has been a tight run operation. So I don't have their special teams coordinator's name off the top of my head, unfortunately, but I feel like they seem like the group that would look for that kind of thing to take advantage of. Maybe the whole team isn't run that way. I'm not super high on Dave Canales as a head coach, but I mean, we saw it last year. They weren't necessarily a well-coached team, but the special teams ran a solid operation for the most part. So
yeah, I'll say this: like at least Jeremy Springer knows about that. Like that's what stood out to me when I did notice that today. I noticed him talking about it when I saw it on social media, and so it's like at least he's on top of things with that. So you wonder they're probably working on it in practice, and so I don't know how exactly they do that. Maybe they have a guy just like throw up a knuckleball. Like they throw up a wobbly ball and have them work on catching it that way. Like at least they're focused on it. At least they know about it, and they're going to at least try to prepare for that. So at least there's that. But of course, it always comes down to execution, right? And so you really hope all the way back, calling back to the beginning of the pod. You hope the Panthers don't come in and win this game. Don't tell me they're going to come in and win the game because of the special teams, especially. Like I would feel better if Bryce Young came in and played his ass off and won a game than if they lost because they muffed a punt or the ball landed in the landing zone and they screwed up on a touchback. Like I really hope that's not going to be the case.
On the practicing it. So again, Borgalis has done some of these, like he can do it. And Springer kind of made it sound like they can maybe put a setting on the jugs machine that does it a little bit, but I mean, it's like a knuckleball. No two are the same. So you can practice fielding an ugly kick, but is it ugly in the same way that the Panthers are kicking it is ugly? Like you can't, that exact part is maybe harder to replicate. One other thing from this game, Dolloff, very important, very crucial. How do you feel about the return of the all blue uniforms? That's right. No silver pants this week, all blue. First time this year.
Hate it. Was never a fan. I mean, look, I could tolerate it for a week, I hated it being the permanent uniforms. The silver / gray pants are infinitely better than the all blue.
Yeah.
But yeah, not a fan of the all blue, and especially of the era that it reminds me of.
I will say, so oddly enough, because I did the numbers earlier today, I think they're like 15 and 18. They're just under 500 in the all blue. They're 3 and 8 in blue and silver. They've been much worse in blue and silver than the all blue. That's going since 2020. That's not including the all blues as the color rush jerseys, but
yeah,
I don't love it as the full-time look. I think once or twice a year, I think it should be more of a primetime look than 1 o'clock against a non-conference team. But once or twice a year, honestly, I'm okay with it. I would have rather they saved it for next week because they're going to wear blue again next week because I believe the Bills are doing their rivalry jerseys next week. So that will be all white. And then the Patriots aren't going to wear their white jerseys for like 6 weeks. So we're getting used to the blues.
Yeah, I mean, look, I still want the silver / gray. I just think they cursed themselves with those all blue becoming the permanent, and that's just a hole they're still digging out of.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not entirely against you. I again, if they want to do it once or twice a year, it's a little different. Fine, no more than once or twice a year. And as far as the game to do it, this is not the game I would have picked. But we'll see. We'll see how that plays in. Watch if they win. You know what? If they're going to win in them, bring the blue pants back forever. As far as I care. Score prediction. Go.
No thanks. Oh, score prediction. Damn.
Yeah.
There's always the one thing that I didn't think of going in the game. It's always the simplest.
Well, we forgot to do it last week, so.
Okay. I'll say Patriots 24-13.
Oh, Dolloff.
Why did
I was going to say 23-13.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do that. Then let's see who's closer.
So 23 and a half team total for the Patriots. There you go. 24-13, 23-13. So you have what? 3 touchdowns and a field goal. I have, what is 23? That's 2 touchdowns and 3 field goals.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, that's probably more realistic,
I don't
honestly.
know. Don't make me do math on the air. But those are the predictions. We'll have more on the game on 98.5 thesportshub.com leading up to it. Also, we'll be back on Monday for our recap podcast, plus the recap podcast with David Andrews. You can find all of that at Patriots Hub Podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, and on the Sports Hub YouTube page. By the way, I love that David Andrews, because this happened in my mentions today. I've seen it happen to other people. It happened in my mentions for the first time today. I love David Andrews is just out there lurking, keeping Patriots Twitter honest. Like,
keep me
credit
honest.
Him jumping right in the cesspool year one. You know,
David, happen to have you as a coworker. Please be cordial. Please know that I am trying my best. I am
being very
watching
respectful.
the film. I'm doing my research the best I can. I'm not just trying to sling hot takes.
No, he's being very respectful, but when people are overreacting, he's calling them on it. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So we'll talk to him Monday. Maybe I'll ask him about that. We'll be back Monday as well. Until then, for Matt Dolloff, I'm Alex Barth. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next time.